Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon, USA area. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is one of an ongoing series of standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like my guest tonight, John Poling. And is he ever interesting? And we're going to talk about whatever he wants to talk about and who he is and where he came from. And the title of the show is The Indomitable John Poling. Indomitable. I thought hard about that.
I bet you did.
How are you, John?
I thought that was a snowman.
No, the abdominal, no. This is going to be this way all night long. When did we meet? 20 years or so ago?
Early 90s.
A long, long time ago.
You had just come to the area.
And how many times have you been on the show in all these years?
Oh, my goodness, quite a few.
Quite a few. Every time we think we've got you all covered, you do something else that's unusual or strange. And the group of characters you've associated with through the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can be an encyclopedia of strange characters, including me.
You're one of the ones, yeah. Yeah, I've attracted some interesting people in my life.
Yes, you have.
Men and women.
Yes, especially that second part.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. I got my rest and I'm all ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Your belly's full of food?
Yeah, I ate and everything.
Oh, very good. So we're going to talk about you personally, and I'll ask you some questions about where you came from in all these years, and then we'll throw in some political stuff or whatever else comes to mind. And knowing you and I, we can go on for 3 or 4 hours because we get going.
Are you planning on that tonight?
All right, let's start now. And as you know, I'm going to ask you some questions I've asked you before. But time has gone by now, and maybe you have some slightly different answers. So let's find out. I guess know who I am, but I'll say a few words about who I am to remind them they haven't seen me say this for a long time. I'm Dr. Don Baham. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, of red, white, and black Roman Catholic parentage on December 26, 1928. Today I'm a-religious and accepting of all others. I'm a retired PhD clinical psychologist and present-day television broadcast journalist. I am the 12th of 12 children, am married, and am the father of 5 daughters by a first marriage. Politically, I am a progressive, populist activist, still learning how to live lovingly.
Yeah.
Still learning how to live lovingly. That's an ongoing process going on. A few of my heroes include Jesus Christ, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and any other fellow human who is currently living lovingly. Yeah, those are my heroes. I'll ask you some of these questions about you, too, as we go through it here.
Sure.
And as you know, if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, kick me under the table or something. You don't have to answer. Yeah, you are indomitable, as we'll see as we ask you some questions later on.
Okay.
Yeah. If I were to ask your best friend, you pick a best friend and ask him, who is John Poling? What would your best friend say? John Poling is
everything. He's a Duke mixture of everything. I've had more interest in activities and businesses than you can shake a stick at.
And you're still doing it?
All of them.
And tell me again, for the viewers' sake, when and where were you born?
You know, I was born in Clovis, New Mexico, and I always tell people, I'm a New Mexican. I'm a Mexican, but a new one.
You knew something. I don't know what it is. But and how long did you stay there?
6 months.
Say, you left pretty quick, huh?
Well, my mother did.
Uh-huh. And where'd you go from there?
Well, my father was a Pentecostal minister. So they call them PKs, the kids of the preacher's kid.
Uh-huh.
So I was a PK, and he was a traveling evangelist. So we were all over the South.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was in a different. In fact, they had to slow down just to get me in school.
Because you were moving around so much, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did that learning about religion stick with you? Are you religious nowadays?
I try not to be religious, but I've learned it's more important to be spiritual and have a spiritual belief and experience.
A spiritual belief. What do you mean by that, being spiritual? What does being spiritual mean for you in some other words?
Okay. You could look in the Bible, or like you were naming a lot of interesting people.
Uh-huh.
And it's something that happens inside of you. It's nothing external. It's nothing you can learn, but it's an experience that you have.
Yeah. Is it associated with a particular feeling that we can identify? Is it mad, sad,
Christ
scared, or glad?
said love, and they talk about everything else, and they get in arguments about love and what do you believe, but he said the greatest of all is love.
Do you believe that?
That's what I try to practice.
And you do. You do, yeah. And anything significant about your cultural or national heritage? Are you a white bread or Russian or something?
No, it was interesting because my grandfather, young man in Virginia, and he wanted to get some land and the government was giving it away free.
Mm-hmm.
And his brother said, well, let me go with you. So they got two grants, and they had two farms side by side, but you had to live on them. So they built one house right across the property line, and the two brothers lived there. Then it didn't take long. They got lonely, so he wrote back and asked my grandmother, which was his girlfriend, when he left Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And she came out, and she was telling me one time she wasn't going to live with these two guys. No way. And so they had a cave on that ranch, and he built a wall on the front of the cave with a door in it.
No kidding.
And a dirt floor, and she's sweeping that cave, and that's where my family came from.
And what state was this in?
Texas, the Panhandle. I have an uncle that still lives on that property to this day.
Still owns it.
Yeah.
Have you been there recently?
My brother goes out every year. I don't. I came to Oregon. I live on the Columbia River, and I like it here. And so I let my brother go down there and do that.
Uh-huh.
But they meet every year, polling reunion.
I'll be darned. About how many are there now in that reunion?
Well,
when they get together, roughly.
I'm told that if Grandpa was still alive today, and all of the mineral rights that he had from owning that property and buying out the neighbors, that he'd be making $50,000 a month off of his oil minerals. Amazing.
He's still collecting on that.
Well, then he died when my dad was only 18 years old.
Okay.
So my dad had this big inheritance. And in Texas, even though it makes my mother mad, but they treat the women 1/7. He had 6 brothers, so he got 1/7, and so did Grandma. And that's how they divided that up when he passed away.
Did you got any investment down there? Anything left for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they divided it 50 ways, but it's still going around.
That's amazing.
Now, it's interesting that a couple of years ago, royalties went down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what was some nice checks for all the kids is down to zero, you know, pretty much zero.
Yeah, it's amazing how long that can last, huh?
Yeah.
Now, I asked you about your religious preference, and you talked about spiritual. You have anything more to say about what what being spiritual means. I have a couple of thoughts about it. Of course, I've had a lot of practice through the years, refining what my thoughts are, and I'm still not sure, but I might have a comment or two after you.
Well, mine changes pretty regularly. It evolves.
Lay it on me.
And I'm going to a church right now that they name it and they teach it as Bible. And it's very interesting because, you know, just like Christ is love, a lot of people have concepts other than love about what it is, but to me it is love. And not romance or getting love or anything. The real love, the love that is of God, you know. God is love, and that's my belief.
You love your fellow human beings?
Absolutely.
How do you let them know that?
Well, there's a lot of ways, and the first thing you do is how do you treat them?
Okay.
And that's really important. When I was younger, my first and foremost concept was about business. I was mostly in real estate, and how do you get rich, basically. And then I decided, hey, I'm getting older. It's not how much more money can you make, you know, you're at the end of life, and just start enjoying it. And so I'm finding out where can I give donations, and that's my big thing right now.
Why do you think you got the name Indomitable? Why would someone say that you're indomitable?
I guess you come up with that, but you can't stop me. I just keep going.
Yeah, it energizes. No, I don't. So you keep going.
Yeah.
And despite what's going on in your life through all these years?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I went through the stroke. I've survived all that. I've been in every kind of business and stuff that there is. And I just keep going. I didn't let the stroke bother me. I mean, it bothered you, but it didn't stop me.
So, and you still have some business activities that you're involved with?
Well, I'm not running a business, but I am. And that's because I'm operating the nonprofit end of it. Yeah. And so that's a business. A lot of nonprofits don't realize they're in business.
Yeah, do you think you're going to put me in your will? Because you got to give that money to somebody who's going to put it to good use.
Yeah.
Forget about that. So, how about your formal education?
I went to Benson High School.
That's here in Portland.
It is. And I was on the honor roll. I was the president 2 years in a row for Youth for Christ. And that's my father's ministry showing up, you know, in my high school. And so I had a lot of experiences because of that. And we were, Youth for Christ had a TV show every week.
TV show?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a while ago then.
Way back. And so I was on their program over 100 times. But then I was the president of Youth for Christ at Benson. And I was chaplain of the city.
The city of what?
Well, the Youth for Christ city chaplain.
Oh, okay.
And Benson High School, Youth for Christ. I was president of 13 clubs when I graduated.
Honor roll.
On the honor roll.
Because how smart you are, or what?
Well, there's a lot of... That's a big discussion. But I know, well, to start with, I was student body secretary. So I started a column in the newspaper of our little school.
So you've always been involved with some sort of publishing, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I remember a long, long time ago, Community Connections was your...
That's how we met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just starting out here in the Portland area and totally green to what was going on. And I met you, and then you got me turned on, and something happened, and you couldn't lead the group, and you pressed me into service. I don't know what the heck I was doing, but I got away with it.
You did a good job.
So I tried it again.
And look at you now.
We weren't recording stuff then.
Well, we had our camera, and we recorded everything that went through there.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we know what you're doing now work-wise, but you're still involved. So the mind is always working, and so are you. How about, do you have a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or one of each of those? What do you have?
No, I don't. For about 15 years, I ran a singles club right downtown Portland at the Heathman Park Haviland.
I remember.
And a lot of interesting people through there. But I'm 76 now, and that seems to be the least of my interest. I'll tell you though.
Tell me.
Well, we were on one of your shows, and I had my prostate removed. Mm-hmm. And I said to the guy, I said, now, this is not going to affect my... I said, oh, no, it's not going to affect... He said, do you want to have it removed? It's got cancer in it. And I said, yeah, I guess it's got cancer. Remove it. He picks up the phone, calls across the other building. And he said, book me for tomorrow. I mean, I just agreed to that, and bang, it was done. But, I mean, I can't regret it. I remember one time my father said about my singles club, he said, well, you know what you have to do if you can't contain yourself with all these women up here. He said, you know what a eunuch is? I said, yeah, I think I do. Well, I'll tell you, they made a eunuch out of me when they cut that prostate out.
And we don't go any further in that direction because this is a family show. And I know you, John, you're a little off color. No, never mind. So that's why, one of the reasons that I say you're indomitable. That's one of those things in life for you. And you keep going.
Right.
You always have an interest in. I see you, and I don't see you as often as I used to, but then I see you and I say, there's John, still cooking right along.
Hey, you think that you see me still cooking. My housemate came home with a camera, and she said, let me show you the pictures that I took today down at the gay parade. And she's going to these pictures. Uh-huh. And I said, well, that's Dr. Baham. Oh, no. I said, yes, it is. I said, I should know him. And she had taken your picture, and you didn't even know it, and she didn't know it until I said, oh, yeah, that's him. Big smile.
Yeah, yeah. So she didn't come on the show when she thought she would, but she'll be coming on in the future because we agreed that we'll get her booked in the near future again because she's got an interesting life.
She was actually born right up there in 23rd. That old hospital, they moved it down on 23rd now.
In Portland?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then they moved it, then she moved out to the ranch that the family had. Uh-huh. And like all families, now they're about where they're trying to figure out how to divide the asset, you know. Mm-hmm. That's what happens to every family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So, you any children or grandchildren?
Quite a few.
At our age, we know what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
My little granddaughter came over the other day, and it was so cute because my son Brock, you've been on your show.
Brock, yes.
And he said, well, let me put you on Grandpa's lap. So this time she comes over, and I said, now you can get on my lap and go for a ride. Because I didn't have the wheelchair then. Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah. How old is she now?
She's I have to stop and think about
Of
this.
course. Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of grandkids.
Yeah.
I had one son. He wanted to have nothing but kids, so he married the girl he met in high school. And they're getting ready to have one more baby, and said, "What should we name him?" And everybody said, "Henry." Why? Why do you want to name him Henry? Henry the Eighth.
Oh, that's bad.
It's true, though.
Yeah. Do they love Grandpa?
Oh, yeah.
I bet they do. Yeah.
Yeah, even though I haven't seen some, because they live way out in Gaston and around, but they came up, we had 1,000 dinners, breakfasts, 1,000 breakfasts down at the Coliseum at a church event. And it was on Good Friday, just before Easter. And they were all there. And they all come over and they bend down to get my height in the wheelchair and give me a big hug. Yeah.
Yeah. Indomitable. You, among your other talents and interests, you've had some interest in politics and political activities through the years. How would you characterize yourself on the political continuum? Are you a left or rightist? Or?
Well, when I was in high school, I joined the Young Republicans. I was very active, And I owned the Dorchester House, and that was well known to be the Republicans' Dorchester House Conference.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fine then, but now I'm a little like you. I'm getting way to the left, way to the left. I was and still am really concerned about some things going into politics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unclear in my mind if Hillary lost the election or if Trump won it, but there seems to me some shenanigans going on there somewhere.
Big time. So you're not a Trump supporter, are you?
Well, I track him. You got to track that guy. One of the channels is now keeping track of all of his lies.
Oh, man. It's amazing how he still manages to keep going. He's indomitable, huh?
Well, I thought with his background as a builder and investor that would be great, but I didn't realize he was also a liar.
Is he going to make it through this first term as president, or is he going to be impeached, or is he going to resign? What's going to happen with Trump?
Well, other people more qualified than I am have predicted things, but some people say it.
Just a guesstimate.
Well, let's say my hope is that he will get impeached. Mostly because it's good television.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how he's managed to achieve the level of notoriety that he has.
Absolutely.
And that he's got this level of support that they don't change.
No, that 38 or 39%.
No matter what.
Don't matter. He himself said, I could just stand out in the middle of the street and start shooting people and everybody would say, fine, that's just Trump.
Scary.
It's very scary.
I've been saying I believe he won't last this first term, and I was also saying that he probably will not last the first year. I think like Nixon, he'll have to resign. But then when he goes and you have Pence and then Ryan, and I don't know, I think we're lost.
That's right.
Where's FDR or the Kennedys or one of those people?
Well, I've always enjoyed and followed politics, but this is the most confusing I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the doomsday clock? The Union of Concerned Scientists. And
Yeah.
every so often that we get closer to midnight, and I think it's the closest it's ever been now since the Cuban Missile Crisis, like 2.5 minutes before doomsday, which would be midnight. And I want to see that clock go back the other way.
I keep watching to see if there's any association or any semblance of comparison to Revelations, because Revelations has a lot of stuff about end times, and I haven't put it together yet. I'm not that sort.
Yes, you are. Just keep me posted.
I'm still looking. I'm still looking. When I find the answer, I'll call you up and say, I'm going to go back on that show.
The apocalypse. You believe in the apocalypse?
Oh, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
All right. You belong to any political, social, or civic organizations? Any of that's come to mind?
Not anymore. I used to join all that stuff. But I'm trying to retire.
You've been trying to retire for a long, long time.
That's
man.
right.
So now tell me the names of a few people that you admire or look up to in your life from the time you were small. Any names come to mind? Like, I've been doing this a long time, so I can probably take the time to tick off maybe 3 or 4 different names of people I admire.
Well, I think first and foremost is putting the honor where it belongs, and that's with Jesus Christ. And Trump sort of sticks his foot in the fan there and condemns all the Muslims, and they can't fly over here and all that, and it's going to the Supreme Court right now. But I try not to get mixed up in that too far.
You bet. That's depressing.
Yeah, it is. And I don't enjoy it, and that's half of what's on TV right now.
Do you think Putin managed to get into the presidential election thing to influence and cause Trump to win the presidency because of his influence?
Well, there's no question that they now know that he was mixed in it. And the only question mark is how far is Trump involved with Putin?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's a truism. Every time you ask Trump about that, he mentions Putin. Oh, I'm not involved in that.
There's something pretty smelly about this whole situation.
Yeah.
Do you think it's kind of a repeat of the Nixon time in political office when he was forced to resign?
Well, except it's on high speed now.
You think so?
It took them several years to get Nixon. They get this guy in a few months. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be curious as to see what's happening. Oh, even a year from now, not to mention the next presidential race. And that a lot can happen in that period of time. What with social media and so much is available with the internet and all that kind of stuff, so that people are more aware of what's really going on and hopefully behave in a way that's responsible and loving and kind rather than being caught up in some other motivation.
I remember writing some stuff about, I started out with a mimeograph machine.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first paper.
With that blue stuff on your fingers?
Yep. And I went on up, I bought a teletype machine, and I had it in my office, a machine that would print, and we used to run it through like film strip, on, and linotype, and you name it, and I thought, wow, where's this going to go? I had no idea that we would have telephones and social media and all that. It just keeps going.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah.
As soon as I think I've learned the latest thing that's out there, then it's obsolete. I don't have time anymore, John. I'm stuck. I'm a Luddite. I'm not going to go past the past century.
stuck in the past. Well, I couldn't believe how the printing industry alone has changed.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to give up on reading books at all?
No, I just bought a little Kindle,
Uh-huh.
so I'm learning how to make it go forward and backwards and all that. And everything's on that. And, you know, it seems like Amazon's going to control the world and Google's going to be helping them.
I think we better change this topic because it's getting kind of scary. Let's see, you. A real estate developer and investor owning and operating the Dorchester House in Lincoln City, and that's in Oregon,
Yep.
and the Mount Hood Hotel in Hood River. Boy, you have so many activities, yeah. We talked about Trump and religion and politics. The deep state, I think we mentioned the deep state, and I had a few words to say about it. Like there's the regular state that's supposedly elected by the populace and the three branches of government in our Constitution and that. But behind the scenes, there's some talk about some people who really determine what's going on in the regular government, and this is the deep state. And I've summarized it for myself as being the people who have the money to own the political process, such that the people who are in the regular government are put there by the super rich. Mm-hmm. So it's a competition that's been going on, I guess, since humans have been on the earth, to stay ahead of the game and to have more and more wealth than a person could ever need. And what do you think about the deep state?
Well, I believe it exists.
Uh-huh.
And right now, my friends, I have run a thing called Business. It was called Business Network, but we just shortened it to BizNet.
Mm-hmm.
And we meet once a month. And a lot of those guys are getting into cryptocurrency. And that is an alternative to our currency.
Yeah.
And as you probably know, I've done barter for years and years, 20 years.
Yes.
And my group have been following this barter thing all these years. But now they're starting to look at this crypto, and that's a currency like the Bitcoin. And I'm trying not to get off in another field.
You probably will.
Well, I know some of my friends have. But in fact, one of my buddies, he calls himself a crypto codger.
Crypto codger. Oh,
an old codger involved in crypto.
So what do you say we take a little break and catch a breather, and then we'll come back and talk some more about politics or anything else that comes to mind for you. Can we take a break? people give me a good feedback on it, then I stick with that one. Because when people give me good feedback or give me a smile, then it's a success. Okay, we're back, so thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like John Pauling, my buddy over here, about who he is, again, and who he is as a unique, one-of-a-kind individual, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. And I should have had some dinner because I'm kind of tired, running out of steam. But anyhow, so let's continue on with what we were talking about before. And you want to talk some more about politics, or shall I give you some other questions?
Other questions, I think.
Remember the song Alfie?
Barely.
What's it all about, Alfie?
Yeah, but I'm not up
just
on
for the moment
songs.
we give. Okay. To what extent are humans responsible for the health of the earth? How responsible are humans for the condition of the earth with global warming and those kinds of things?
Well, I have strong feelings about that.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the board of directors for Earth and Spirits Council.
Okay.
And that's what we studied about, researched. And clearly, in my opinion, we were bringing this on. I have a friend who lives down in Texas at Midland, you know, where that's where a former president lives. And they're blasting underground in order to get oil coming to the surface. And then they wonder why we're having so many earthquakes.
Earthquakes, yeah.
Yeah.
So fossil fuels should be obsolete. They should be outlawed anymore, huh?
Yeah, but not going to be.
Do you think we'll ever get away from fossil fuels and instead have solar and wind and all those other methods of
We
energy?
have such beautiful options. Why we're not exercising them, I don't know. I think the same money people who's behind that.
The moneyed people, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you give them some of your money, John?
Well, I haven't got enough. Those guys, they control all the banks and everything.
So what do we need to do to have things turn around and stop the direction we're heading in, such that global warming and those kinds of things are going on? What do we need to do as citizens of the world or as citizens of America? To have
Well,
things?
all we can do right now is to get people aware. And I don't think America is ready to turn around. Man, I learned more about what they're not going to do when I watch Trump and how the people follow him. And, you know, Vice President Al Gore was going in that direction.
Yeah, very much so.
And he lost.
Yeah. So what about the Democratic Party? I guess they're still arguing that the Democratic Party is the other option rather than the Republican Party. And there are some people suggesting that the Democratic and Republican parties are just two wings of the same party.
Why don't they take another look at Bernie Sanders?
You're a real lefty, aren't you?
He is very left.
Yeah. I think had we not had gerrymandering and those kinds of things influencing the people who are registered to vote, then Bernie would have won. He's too old to run again.
Mm-hmm.
So what about the idea of having a true alternative to the Democratic and Republican parties? And who would that be?
Well, you know, the only alternative we have, I've been seeing them on TV, and Jill and different ones that,
Yeah.
you know.
Joe Stein.
Yeah, but I don't think America's ready for that. There's this thing with Donald Trump has convinced me that a lot of people are not ready for it.
Well, how do we get ready?
Well, there's 2 or 3 different ways.
Okay.
One of those is they're going to blow the whole thing up with this Middle East work. That you know, we're going to end up having war. War usually is how they resolve everything.
Anymore, yeah.
Yeah. And what's going on in the Middle East?
That is really scary.
It is.
And what about the arms that are going into the Middle East? And at the moment, we can't tell which side America's giving the most money and arms to. Someone said it's a game of, the age-old game of let's you and him fight. I'll give you guys a lot of arms and you fight each other, and that way you won't be threatening me and my domination of the area.
What was interesting to me, whether it's Syria, Turkey, or on over to Israel and Palestine and all that, it's the same names that were in the Bible. All those stories were in, my father used to read that to me as a youth, and all those names, you know, clear down to the towns. And now Trump's even considering setting an American embassy in Jerusalem. Amazing.
There's no stopping those people, how crazy they are.
Right.
And Israel has nuclear and all sorts of things. I don't want to go there anymore. I don't know how to consider that something other than ending up with a major catastrophe and the beginnings of another world war. But then if that happens, are we going to not use nuclear weapons or the mother of all bombs?
Mm-hmm. And who's willing to give that up?
We got to change this subject and talk about something else. Okay, what else? How about are nation states obsolete? Do we need to have some other organizations for humankind on Earth, countries and areas? And it seems like they're still going to be fighting country against country. And is there some way we can organize humankind such that we don't have this competition between nation states? I'm looking at some other options than the one we've got right now, which are not lasting too very well.
It's interesting. My pastor has been teaching at a Bible school in Tobago and Trinidad. And I never realized that those two islands consist of a nation.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I studied a little more and learned a little more about that. But then I have some good friends that like to go to Belize. They speak English.
Yeah.
And even though I was born in New Mexico, I never learned to do as much Spanish. But, you know, I mean, Mexico is on the border, and yet Canada is our friend. Mexico hasn't become our friend yet.
How much traveling have you done in your lifetime?
Not a lot. I went down to Mexico, and you know, the guys would say, "Do you want to meet my little sister?" So that hasn't worked out very well for me.
Okay. What in life gives you the most satisfaction, enjoyment, and fulfillment nowadays? What is it in life that gives you the most satisfaction and pleasure in your life today?
I like sitting having breakfast and watching the Columbia River roll by.
Oh, yeah.
And now they got a couple of big sternwheelers.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And so I yell out, "Hey, you guys, there's a sternwheeler." And everybody wants to run to the deck and look at the sternwheelers. And to me, things like that. I bought another little birdhouse, and I love to watch the little birds in the morning. And the most enjoyable, we got the Canadian geese flying over.
Yes.
And so I bought a box or sack of birdseed, and you throw that out there, and they bring their babies. And their babies are probably what we'd call a teenager now. They haven't quite got all their feathers, but we counted 17 little babies and about 6 adults. I don't know if they're babysitting or what they do, but they come by in the morning and they look up to see if we got the birdseed for them.
Oh,
Yeah.
they expect it, huh?
Oh, yeah.
And that gives you enjoyment.
Oh, yeah. And then I get to look across the river, and I'm got a background of being interested in building and developing and all that.
Oh, yes.
So they got up 2 stories high now. They're building 35 acres, another waterfront just like Portland, but it's a Vancouver waterfront.
And this is on the Columbia River.
Yeah. On the Vancouver side, they took out the old mill and they developed that. The city got behind it and the developer got the money. And they have just started, they got 2 stories high now.
I'll be darned.
So I check every morning to see the progress on the construction over there.
Now, there's been the discussion for some time about a new bridge over the Columbia River that will connect Oregon and Washington State. What's the latest word on that? I've heard it going back and forth for years now.
Yeah, it has. There's a thing called CRC, Columbia River Crossing.
Yes, yes.
So we named our community Columbia River Community, CRC. And I think they made a big mistake. Oregon voted in favor of paying that $3.5 billion. And then Washington didn't want to do it. And then you look out the window, and it's bumper-to-bumper traffic to get across that bridge.
We're going to cross that bridge from one state to another.
Right. And so we had red lights flashing on the bridge and cops and everything, you know. And people are trying to jump off the bridge and into the river. And then there's the police boats. They pull up and they want to be there to catch them. We've had 1 body float up at our little gazebo where you sit and enjoy it. They usually catch them before they jump off.
So that's going on nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Are there more attempts nowadays recently than, say, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago?
Well, there, you know where that, what they call the suicide bridge?
No, say a few more words about it. Which one?
Where Jefferson went underneath the bridge, and I used to live there, and then they built the tunnels.
Yeah.
Well, I was there before that, and people are jumping off all the time. I had a room rental business way early, and I had one lady never showed up for days, you know. So finally I decided I'm going to knock on your door till you answered. And she didn't answer it. And so I thought, well, what do I do now? So I called the police and I said, I think you better come over here. So they busted the door down and she had shot herself. It happens all the time, Don.
Why is it happening more now than, say, 5 years ago? Is it frustration with politics and what the direction the world is going in?
Well, I think that it's all going too fast. And, you know, Portland doesn't have a good reputation necessarily. I mean, we got, well, just look, you've been down there to the, what do they call those things where they protest and all this stuff?
Oh, demonstrations?
Yeah. We didn't used to have that.
No. So it seems like there's some serious element of despair and depression. It seems like there's more of that kind of unhappiness than there was, say, in 20 or 30 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, I pretty much what I remember about coming to Oregon in '49 and all of the 50s, you know, after the war, I mean, people were happy in building their first little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house and all that. And then they tried to build McMansions, but people are just trying to do too much in social media. I mean, it's really difficult, and I think that's getting to people.
You're going to have to get out there and be a candidate for president. That's what we need.
Well, you can help me and we'll save the world, huh?
So what else we got? What would you like people to say about you after you're gone?
I'm not going to go.
My wife and I had this discussion a short time ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she says, you're not going to go anywhere. I says, time goes on.
It
My
does.
time is limited now. I'm about 12 years older than you, but you don't know what it's like.
I never forget, I took Brock, when he was real little, to 2000 New Year's Eve party in downtown Portland. And he didn't even know what was going on. He was that young.
Your son, Brock.
Yeah. But I remember thinking, I never thought I would see the year 2000.
I know.
And then all of a sudden, here we are, still going. I never thought I'd see 76 years old. It's just amazing, isn't it?
And you mentioned earlier what you're doing sitting on the bank of the Columbia River where you're living. It's beautiful there, beautiful. And every year, 4th of July, boats out there, and of course, I'm always there to see what's going on. And that peaceful quiet where you're looking at the Canadian geese, and it seems like you managed to enjoy your existence from moment to moment.
Oh, I do enormously. And we have 2 big events down there. 4th of July, it's almost impossible to get on the island.
Yeah.
And then the Christmas ships are gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
And they go right in front of my house.
It's hard to live over there on the river, isn't it?
When those sternwheelers came by, and some investors apparently bought those and refurbished them. But it reminds me of my favorite writer when I was little. I was in grade school.
Mark Twain.
Absolutely. Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain.
Yeah. Good stories, huh?
Yeah.
He was a writer.
Yeah. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
So now I pretend like that's what I'm doing on the banks of the Mississippi River here.
How's your appetite? You eat okay?
You know, I gotta lose a little weight. I was gaining up to 200, and I just started. I made up my mind. I don't have to eat every time the clock goes up, and I got it back down to about 175, 185.
You're looking good.
Well, I think you feel better if you lose a little weight.
All right. What else can I ask you about? We didn't solve what's going on in the Middle East, and I wonder what you think about Hawaii. You want to go to Hawaii before it's all over? What's your bucket list looking like?
My bucket list has never been Hawaii.
You haven't been to Hawaii? You haven't lived yet.
Well, what I don't know is why do we need to own an island way over there?
Yeah. Oh, well, it looks like we're running out of time now, so let's just wind down because they're going to yell at me if we don't stop. And I got a few public service announcements to tell you about.
Sounds fair.
Okay. So before we say goodnight, I want to say a big thank you to my wonderful crew and to the managers and teachers here at the studios in Portland, Oregon metro area where I produce and hold the Conversations with Dr. Don shows. I also want to thank you viewers in other parts of the country and in other parts of the world where you're watching because I'm on YouTube now, you know. you have any closing thoughts or comments about anything we've talked about tonight, anything else, look at that camera and tell the viewers what you want to tell them. You got a minute.
1 minute.
Yeah.
I'll tell you everything in my life in 1 minute. That's pretty good.
Go for it.
But I think that the world is really changing, and there's only one hope, and that's the love that Christ talked about. And we need to find that hope. There are other people that, like Gandhi, you mentioned and all, but you got to get your life straightened around to where you have love in your heart and love in your life, and you're helping other people. To me, that's the important thing, especially when you're 76 years old.
And it comes down to just 2 words, and what's it all about and what's important. And Mama told me as I was very, very small, be nice. And that's where I got this idea from. Be kind to even unkind people. They need it most. And when people see that, and they get all warm and fuzzy, and now and then there's a cute little old lady with white hair, and she sees a sign, and she gets all mushy and gooey, and her eyes get wet, and she's made my day. So let's have a few public service announcements so that we can get ready to leave. How about my local broadcast schedule? Go to my website, www.donbaham.com, and click on Present Day Activities, my website. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, that's one of my favorite organizations. Without the ACLU, our civil liberties would be down the tube more than they are. And thanks for watching. And remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too, and the guests behind you. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Good night.